Okay. All righty. So, welcome everyone back to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you guys here today. And this is an awesome, awesome show and episode we have going today because I have a special guest with me. And I am really thrilled to be bringing this topic that we're going to be discussing in here today with you because we're in the midst, as I'm recording this, of the holiday season. It has started. And so you're going to get a lot of insight today on how you can actually navigate those holidays without all the shame, regret, and judgment that you might have at other times because there are other options out there besides just all the alcohol that you've been putting in your body. And we're going to give you some insight on what those items are, how they can help you, where you can find them, all kinds of awesome stuff around those options that are out there. So let me go ahead and get started. I'm going to introduce my guest. Her name is Martha. Right. And I actually met her at my This Naked Mind certification training. And that's how we met each other. So we're both This Naked Mind certified coaches. And we both are alcohol free. And so we're both on this mission to make space for the life of alcohol free living. So, Martha, go ahead and let the listeners know a little bit about yourself, kind of your little background story, and then we'll get into our awesome topic and the awesomeness we're going to bring in today.
Love it. Thank you so much, Debbie. I love that. I love all the people that we have been honored to meet in our coaches group. And it's so true that we have these shared experiences. As you said, we're alcohol free and we have this mission, but then each one of us has a pretty unique, alcohol story that and how we got here. And I love what you said about creating space for for alcohol free celebrations, and that is just it. Luckily there is more space now than ever before. So we'll get into that, but just to introduce myself, I grew up in New Orleans in a very alcohol fueled culture, and really felt that alcohol was absolutely the fabric, not just the part of the fabric of my life, but the fabric of my life, growing up in that culture. And when I met and married my husband, we very quickly got into the wine industry. And for us, that was the most romantic and passionate sort of idea. And that was our plan of, we really want to create something and we want to put ourselves in a place where we're really doing something filled with passion. And that was, what we imagined. So it felt like we were living, I'd say, living a dream, and found in the wine industry some wonderful people that were just, also giving up lucrative careers to somehow get into this industry. And what I loved about it always was the connection. This is what I believed. I really believed that I was connecting people through alcohol, through wine and wine education, and the, introducing people to the wines that we made, but also the wines we imported from France. And I believed that that was bringing people together. And that's just what I knew. I was using a tool that had been handed to me, that a tool that I saw in our culture. So I really did believe that. And that's the aspect of the industry that I know that I loved. But what became very apparent is that my body was protesting, this then 20 years into a career in wine, and just the very relentless, hosting, marketing, selling, promoting, drinking, sampling, sharing wine. My body was really protesting. And I just didn't know, like maybe some of you listening, I started to question things, but I kept putting, just tamping that down. Oh, I'm really okay. I don't drink any more than anyone else in my industry. It's kind of looking around. I feel like maybe a lot of us do that. I was looking at other people and do I drink more than this person? I think the amount I drink is, is pretty normal. And what would a doctor say? I do remember thinking to myself, I just almost wish a doctor would tell me that I just can't. Would that might make it easier? Because by that point, what I was doing was trying to put up some limits around my drinking. I'll only drink on these days. I'll only drink this much. And I guess I kept thinking, oh, that'd be so much easier if someone just told me that I just can't. And I just hit a point. Some of my symptoms were, I was really starting to worry. The most important is that I was worried about my brain. I really felt like I was having some cognitive issues. Just I don't know, just having moments of struggling to remember things, feeling some real disconnect. I was waking up in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. in this sort of spiral of self-blame and worry. I would worry about things in the middle of the night, and a few other symptoms. And so that's what was really going on. But I was questioning, but I didn't know what is the next step. I just knew I was questioning, and it was through just chance encounter with a neighbor who mentioned Annie Grace and This Naked Mind. And I went home and looked it up and signed up right away for the 30-day alcohol experiment, which I found amazing. The science-based approach and the shame-free, grace-led approach changed everything. It made sense to me. It clicked, but mainly I think overall, I just felt immediately that I wasn't alone. That made all the difference. Realizing that, oh my gosh, there are thousands, tens of thousands more of us that are saying, this doesn't feel right. And so suddenly, instead of just thinking, am I crazy? I started to feel empowered to say, okay, this makes sense, to listen to what my gut instinct was telling me. And alcohol, unfortunately, was tamping down that connection to my inner voice. I really believe that alcohol really keeps us from hearing our own, gut instinct or inner wisdom, whatever you choose to call it. So suddenly This Naked Mind and the alcohol experiment just gave me a feeling of feeling empowered, that this makes sense, that I can listen, and that I don't need to look at other people and say, how is my drinking compared? The only thing that I really need to do is say, how do I feel? And then, Annie Grace's program gave me the tools to really do that. So that
Well,
kind
I love
of
that
gives you the
part.
background on my alcohol story. Yeah.
Well, I love that part of your story because you allowed yourself to be real with yourself and take away the, okay, what are they doing compared to what I'm doing? Which is what a lot of us do, though, right? When we find ourselves in this cognitive dissonant space, right?
Yes.
Because most people we're hanging around with, we're drinking similar to the way they are drinking, right? And
Exactly.
then to come to real, but yet in our own privacy in the middle of the night, our awareness is there that I know it's this product, it's this drinking I'm doing, but I don't really know what to do about it. And because also nobody talks about it. And then I can also imagine, like, because of the industry you were in, my hunch is you probably also had a lot of thoughts of, okay, then what am I going to do for a living if I have to, like, if this is not what's in my life?
Right, right. You're so right. The thoughts of, this is what we do, and so much about, this is what we do for a living, but also this is my identity. That was a huge struggle. Really, I think that's can be true for any of us, but maybe even more so if you're in the industry, feeling that your identity is all wrapped up in being the wine hostess, being the wine educator. We made and imported and sold wines that really did require a lot of hand selling and education, because we were making a varietal that's there's a lot to kind of explain to it. We were importing wines from small families in France, and there was a story to share. And I was so used to doing that. And didn't really know how to imagine my identity or myself without that.
Yeah. But you also realized you couldn't keep doing what it was you were doing.
Exactly.
So you had to take
Absolutely.
that hard step for yourself, right? Like
And that
I
was a
call it the like joy fear. Like, you know, it's a like you're excited that okay, I found my solution. Like, right, you found Annie Grace's stuff, but then all the fear that comes up from okay, but then I'm gonna figure this out, and then what am I gonna do next? Right? So you're
yes,
in
yes.
this like joy fear moment kind of thing.
Totally. It was a moment, it was very much a moment of empowerment to say, I can't pin this on anyone else. I can't compare. I really am stepping into realizing that I need to make this change for me. And just again, thank goodness that Annie Grace's program was there.
Right. Well, yeah, because I'm with you. I also think that it's the science behind it that helps you like understand, oh, wait, I am not abnormal. I am normal. Like what's going on for me and this struggle I am experiencing is 100% normal in
Which is
because of
everything.
what I'm choosing to put in my body. And when you can then realize, oh, okay, I'm normal, I'm not broken, then you can let go of the shame and the judgment and look at the information and allow yourself to take it in and then make choices from that space and those kind of thoughts and that kind of energy to allow yourself to do what it is that you actually know you need to do for yourself. And
Absolutely.
you've known for a very long time for most people. You've known for a while and then you end up with the and that's why I love the information, like the science behind it. And why I bring it in, like I talk about it on the podcast and I bring it into the courses that I have, is because the science part matters. And because that's not what we actually still, yeah, we're making a lot of movement and there is the sober cares movement and we're getting there, but it's still not out there. Like we hear it a lot because this is what we're doing now with our lives. However, the average person doesn't hear that a lot. And I think
That's
that that's the missing piece, I think, for people is
very,
at
very
least
true.
hearing it. Yeah.
It's very true that we in our culture have had a completely binary understanding of alcohol. You're either normal, a normal drinker, or you have a problem. And what we now know, because of what we've studied, is that that's not true at all, that there's a continuum, and that some of us are gray area drinkers. And, most of us that are drinking regularly, adults that are drinking regularly, or somewhere on that continuum, and as gray area drinkers. And you are so right that it's the science that does make all the difference. It first and foremost just completely removes all the stigma and shame, understanding how our brain works. And I love this approach of realizing that we cannot change our drinking until we change our thinking. So, Annie Grace's approach allows us to understand how are habits formed? What is the neuroscience of what happens in the brain when we drink alcohol, and the reward center and the role of dopamine? And so, how are these habits formed? And where do we have subconscious beliefs around alcohol, and how do we get to those beliefs? Because we do need to uncover them, bring them into the light of day, and then sort of teach our brain to examine those subconscious beliefs. And when we do that, the result is true freedom. And that is what's impossible to imagine when you're still in that loop where you in the middle of the night make a promise that you're not going to drink the next day, and then fall back asleep, wake up, you're groggy, revive with coffee, you start to feel a little bit better, and then later in the afternoon you decide, yeah, that I'm really not so bad, that whatever conversation I had in the middle of the night, that I don't really believe that. It's almost like a special type of amnesia sets in when you're in that loop that I was. And I think many of us have found ourselves in that loop where I don't feel good about this, I'm not going to drink, and then, oh my gosh, I'm drinking again. when you're in that loop, you don't feel that it would be possible to feel totally free of that desire to pour a drink. You don't think that it's going to be possible to completely get away from the belief that alcohol will help take the edge off at the end of the day. You just don't think that's possible. And it is wonderful to be able to tell people that it is possible, and it's incredibly freeing and empowering. And I work in my practice. I work with it's Clear Power Coaching is the name of my coaching business. And I named it that because that was the intense sensation I had when I first went through Annie Grace's program, is that I regained clarity and power, my own power. And I do work with people that want to either stop drinking altogether, or some of them want to moderate. And you really can't do that, moderate successfully, until you've had this experience, the alcohol-free period, till you've learned how the brain works, how our thinking works, and until you've gotten to that place where you can feel a complete distance and separation from this idea that alcohol, I need it to get through, this, I need it to take the edge off. And so that's what this program and approach does. And it
Right.
really,
Yeah.
it really does work.
It does, but I'm with you there on it, because I struggled trying to figure it out too. Like, I grew up drinking culture too. My dad was a boater, right? So boating is the drinking culture. And then I became in the airline industry, and that's a drinking culture. And to like, so once I realized, like yourself, I was in this space of like, yeah, my body's telling me I cannot keep doing this. And if I do, then what's going to happen with my life? But yet I struggled with it for over 7 years, trying to do like the willpower, set rules, set regulations. And it wasn't until, like you said, I started thinking about my thinking. Like, I uncovered what I was believing that alcohol was helping me with, when it really was actually not helping me with anything, but like the subconscious, conscious part of the brains were disconnected. And once I did that and I let it go, and I still and this has been like, I'm in my 5th year now of it. And I am still like, some days like, oh my God, that just feels like such a miracle. Like, literally, because the struggle is so real, and it's so challenging, and feels so defeating, and you
It's
feel
so
so
real.
broken.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
real. And when we're, in an industry, in the alcohol industry, even more so that we're, in denial and don't want to admit that we're not fully in control. And I love, that part of Annie's, the alcohol experiment, that it's about regaining control. And we don't talk to each other. We don't meet up with a friend for coffee and say, by the way, I don't feel fully in control of this desire to have a drink at the end of the day. We just don't talk about it. And that's, again, what's so very powerful about this Naked Mind material, is realizing, oh, okay, it's because I have a human brain that
Yeah.
I am in this loop, and that this has more of a hold on me than I would like. And I definitely think it is because of that background in the wine industry and the hospitality industry that I really got excited about all these new non-alcoholic alternatives. Because again, as I was saying, our wine business was very educationally focused. We were, dealing with these sort of complex wines that had story and history. And so different villages, different characteristics, all that. And so I just while I struggled, what will be my identity? What's interesting is I turned it toward that energy and that interest and excitement to these non-alcoholic alternatives, and have come to realize that I can create community and bring people together with these products. In other words, it was never about the liquid in the glass. That wasn't and unfortunately the fact of what alcohol does to our brains, it made me believe that it was, and it got me hooked on it. But I love being able to now realize and celebrate these other beverages that are coming onto the market faster than we can even keep track of. At first, a year and a half ago, it was sort of like, oh, we have a few things that are being put into a very sophisticated packaging, and they're now some sort of, real adult non-alcoholic alternatives. Well, now for your listeners who may not know this yet, it's exciting to share the news that this segment of the beverage industry is exploding. There is, there's nothing short of saying absolutely exploding, because it's brands are coming to market, and we can, dig into that a little bit, just how exciting it is, how many products, the options are more plentiful. And so it's a better time than ever to be making this choice, or at least dipping a toe. I guess that's what I would say, is if you are even thinking about dipping a toe, I do want to, share that there's so many options now that we get to be part of the celebration and the party, which is really important. In getting into this work, you start to identify and realize how important ritual is to human beings. And for many of us, what we got into alcohol partly because of the ritual of coming together and honoring occasions and times of year. And we were doing that with alcohol. And now with these cool brands stepping up, we are able to do that and stay in the ritual, because, ritual is very, very important for our human connections.
Oh, it's totally. And the brain wants that human connection too, right? And so that's what I love about, because as I said, this is like, I'm in my 5th year. And even like when I did try a couple of times, like the alcohol-free options then in the beginning of my, like 5 years ago, or 4.5, 5 years ago, but their flavor, I was just like, man, I'll just have water instead. Like it just was, and the club soda was perfectly fine, simply because of the flavor of the items. And then I've only just now, really in the last 4 months, myself even exposed myself to the non-alcohol items because of the different events that have been taking place and some of the stuff we've learned about through our connection with this Naked Mind and the people involved with them. And so this is why I'm so excited to like uncover more about it. And I do have a couple I can show as we get into it. But for those of you that are watching us on YouTube, but I just want to, so what's brought this about, like the overview and what's going on within the industry, so people can, because I'm sure listeners they too themselves have tried some of the alcohol-free options and they weren't all that impressed.
Absolutely. So what's a couple things converging at once that in terms of why is this all happening, and why is this industry, this segment of the industry growing? I'll give a couple stats. It's expected that the non-alcoholic segment of the beverage industry is going to grow 10% a year for the next 5 years. That's massive, massive growth. Some of the individual brands that I'm going to talk about and even show a couple examples, some of them are growing right now 400% a month. A month. One brand, Curious Elixirs, is a non-alcoholic cocktail and nicely packaged in these attractive little bottles. They have experienced a 600% growth during the pandemic. I have a friend who produces a beautiful product here in Portland, Oregon, but ships nationally, and they've got a wait list. We see that Heineken introduced their Heineken 0.0. Budweiser has just launched their 0% beer, and Guinness has announced that it's getting in the market. So what we can say for sure is when those big heavy brands start investing millions and millions, it is because there is a huge market there that is, as I said, is growing by these enormous percentages, not just year on year, but even month on month. And part of what has kind of come together at the same time is, one, it's a natural extension, continuation of the overall wellness movement. And in a way, you could almost say, wow, what took so long for us to get around to the alcohol portion of that? Because under wellness, we've done things like we've examined which types of salt are the best, which type of water, what type of, everything on the table we have dissected and looked for in the wellness realm, what's the best here. And just, finally got around to saying, okay, what about alcohol? Is this really doing much for us? So the extension of the wellness, and you've got younger generations that are very committed to that wellness and just healthy lifestyle. And so for the first time, we have generations, millennials and younger, that are drinking less than their parents did. And so that combined with some very bold, voices, new voices like Annie Grace's, like Holly Whitaker's, and other authors coming out with what, and Ruby Warrington, who wrote the book Sober Curious. So we have these authors coming out really with a new message, and that message was, there's an alternative. There are ways to look at the way we're drinking. We don't have to wait for some kind of rock bottom. We don't have to wait for the wheels to come off the bus. And that, I think, is how it used to be, that we were kind of looking at in our culture. We don't talk about alcohol at all. Again, you're either normal or you have a problem. We don't talk about it or examine it until wheels are coming off the bus. And there's this whole, again, newer generation saying, how about we take a look at that? And maybe we don't all have to wait until things get to a huge problem. Let's start talking in our culture about having a different conversation around alcohol. So those forces coming together. And again, in that wellness wellness movement, you have endurance athletes, and it's really some of the endurance athletes that have helped propel this growth in the non-alcoholic beer segment, for instance. So, these are people saying, I want the benefits and the electrolytes and the carbs from the beer, but I do not want all the calories and the alcohol. And so that's been a help to this segment. So those are some of the things that came together. And again, this younger generation that has, in other ways, when we look at millennials, it's not just in alcohol, but in other ways, they have been a generation that has really resisted labels. And that has helped. That's been a part of this movement, because they're saying, I don't want to be labeled whether I'm a drinker 100%, or whether I'm a non-drinker, or whether I'm sober. There's more fluidity to this. And maybe I drink, but I only drink occasionally or once in a blue moon, or, and so that has been part of this movement. But the result is there are some very passionate, interesting people that are coming to market with products that are packaged really beautifully and in a very sophisticated way. The flavors have really improved. Their social media and all of their marketing is very, I'd say kind of cool and energetic and inclusive. That's another one.
Yeah.
And it's like this is the polar opposite of being clubby or I don't know, just or elitist. It's my view in getting into this. Things like I join in the seminars for all drinks. We can share more resources in later in the conversation, but I join into the Worldwide Mindful Drinking Summit, and my experience is finding these creators of these products as they got into it with a lot of passion and creativity, because when they went to make a lifestyle change, they didn't see options that were exciting and delicious and sophisticated. And so they saw a niche, they saw a market there.
Yeah,
And
I think that's fantastic because they're right. I mean, just a short, 5 years ago when I became alcohol free, there was not. I mean, there were options, yes, but the flavors of the options, it was, to me, it was not worth the calories they involved and the effort to find them. The flavor was just didn't offset it, right?
yeah,
And but I also love how they are having the inclusiveness. So it's really not a matter, because I've seen a lot of the social media accounts too, and you probably have a lot more of them, and we can put them all in the show notes. We can link to them that people could, so they can reference to them. But it's like it doesn't have to be, oh, you drink or you don't drink. No, it's all inclusive. Doesn't matter if you're drinking alcohol or not drinking alcohol. Come, everyone's included.
yes,
And that's the part that I love about it too, is the connection, the inclusiveness. And it's really, because I've started talking a lot on the episode and in my training, is you're simply changing what you drink, right? It's not, because you're still drinking, right? Like we all drink, because it's all that, like in my role as flight attendant, and all during that time when I was flight attendant, not once, like even though when I would ask first class, do you want something to drink? They would all answer me with drinks filled with alcohol. But I asked, do you want something to drink in coach class? And very few people had drinks filled with alcohol. Like they did it, and it was almost like the assumption in first class was, oh, she wants to know if I want alcohol, like as if they're in a bar. Yet the assumption in coach was more like I was at the fast food restaurant and they just want to know, do I want something to drink? When the reality is, all I wanted to know is, do you want something to drink? Right?
that
Like
that is
I mean, I
such
just was
great
like, oh my
perspective.
God. And so that's how I started. Oh, you're just simply changing what it is you drink, because you still drink. You have water, you have soda, you have coffee, you have tea, you have Coke, whatever it is, you're still drinking
That's
something.
right. And that's
And
what I really want to talk, I want to be encourage this conversation about how do we improve the drinking culture so that we're not, that drinking isn't an expectation. And I know that I had parties that I'm embarrassed about now where I honestly did not have an option besides wine. It really was wine or wine. I mean, that's what I
yeah,
was offering, and I didn't know better. And that's just the kind of bubble that I was in. But I want to, talk, keep everybody, encourage people to talk about how do we create a better drinking culture where there's just more option. And in that way, I don't have to demonize alcohol at all.
right.
I just know that in my parties today, the non-alcoholic options are displayed in a beautiful way that at bare minimum rival what the attention the alcohol is getting. So just the options of fresh, citrus and mint and beautiful bottles and juices and bitters and things, all these things that, you can be really creative with. That's how I think that we can think about ways we can create space where everyone can really drink what they want and feel good about it without having to separate themselves out or other themselves. I don't want,
Right.
we don't need to do that anymore. Make the non-drinkers feel separated. But do you want to hear about some of these just briefly? Some of the,
Oh yes, I think that's fantastic because that's kind of how I led into the episode. Like, it's like because the holiday season is here, and then I'll pick up the ones I have behind me. You can see on the video, like
perfect.
they're in the corner there, but I'll pick some. Go ahead, and I'll scoot back. I'll turn off my mic while you do.
Okay, so here's an example of one. This is a non-alcoholic gin. And I just think this is a great example of some very sophisticated, cool packaging where you can see how this is going to look very at home on any bar. So this is called Monday Gin. Monday, just like the day of the week. It's got, for those of you that are listening rather than watching this, it's got a very retro Art Deco Hollywood glamour kind of geometric design with golds and greens, just incredibly pretty packaging. This gin is incredibly aromatic. I adore the smell of this, and I've poured it for drinkers who felt that it would fool anybody. You put that with a good tonic. Remember that there's some good tonics now that have much less sugar. And you put that with a good tonic and some lime. And I mean, really, you've got a very cool beverage. And I think this would make a great gift to someone where people who pride themselves on stocking a bar might really want to know about a product like that. A brand new product. This is called Gia. Gia, this I think is a very lovely package also that, to me, this would be a great gift, a great hostess gift. This is a non-alcoholic aperitif, and it has a bitter, very nice bitter quality that comes from orange peel. There's also lemon balm in here. So with a product like this, you get some botanical benefits, but it's a little bit like an Italian aperitif. If anyone, has enjoyed those in the past. So this can be used, you can drink this straight, or you can mix all kinds of cocktails with it. And that also is just one that I think really looks so nice. The packaging when you order it is really beautiful. So if you were to gift that to someone, it's really going to make an impression. I feel like that would be, again, anybody that I know, whether they drink or not, if they pride themselves on having, a bar and being into mixology and, into hospitality, I think that is something that they would enjoy. I poured that for a chef friend of mine, and she was so interested, and then pulled her bar manager over and said, we're going to up our AF, our alcohol-free game, and just based on tasting that. And that product, by the way, is made by the woman who was the creative force behind the brand Glossier, the makeup and skincare. Okay. And so that starts to become kind of a game changer when you've got people that have that marketing know-how. And also this is a very personal product based on her memories of being with her grandmother on the Italian coast. Debi, it sounds like you've got some Liars products.
I do.
And I've got one
the coffee.
here too.
I have the spiced.
Okay, awesome. Funny because these two go together. We could put them together and make
I know, I have that one too.
Okay, we can make an espresso martini, but this range of products, this is Liars, and the graphics are really beautiful. They're very sophisticated looking. These are bottles that, are very attractive and would look great on anybody's bar. Again, this is going to make a great gift. This coffee original, that is something that if someone is a drinker and wants to, experiment and use some of the alcohol-free, whiskey like drink that they have, and make that, but you could also pour this over ice cream. So this would be especially handy, and good as a gift. You could pour this into hot chocolate or your own, coffee to just kick it up, because this is a nice spiced coffee flavor.
Yeah, I haven't opened that one up yet, but I have opened up the spice cane spirit, and it really does have a nice spicy, like, because mine, if I drank rum, was the spice kind of rum, and it does have a similar aroma to that. And even
Absolutely.
just the flavor, because when I first opened it up, I just had a little bit of on ice just to see what it was like. And it's not exact, because you don't have the alcohol kick or whatever, but the flavor is very nice. And
That's so
it's,
great.
so I have some ideas that I'm putting together just based on our conversations, trying to set this up. And, just a couple of mocktail recipes kind of like that I've found online, that I'm going to be putting some stuff together, because we're hosting Thanksgiving this year at my house. So and they all know that I don't drink, because it's been long enough that they're all aware that I don't drink. So I told them, if you're bring whatever it is you want to drink, but I'm also going to mix this up and offer it to them and have them try it, so they can also be exposed to some of this alcohol-free options that are out there, and maybe start choosing a different choice instead of
And
always making that choice of something filled with
that's
alcohol.
it. I love that
So,
you said that, because I think that gets very much what I was saying about the just changing the conversation around alcohol, creating a better drinking culture. It doesn't mean that there's any aim to eliminate alcohol, but when we give people options,
right.
before I just wasn't often giving people even the options, but when we give people the options, I love the idea for people, if you're wanting to dip a toe in this, one way to do that is to create a sort of DIY bar where there's some kind of non-alcoholic cocktail where you've got the elements and people can have fun mixing it and putting it together. Those that want to spike theirs with some alcohol, they can be free to do that, but you've set up something where people get to play around and experiment and see how tasty these things are. And when we give people the choice, it can be surprising, because we can realize, oh wow, maybe people sometimes, there are all kinds of reasons that you might not drink besides the fact that you might be driving, but you could be trying to up level a business and you're taking on a huge work project and you got a lot of things to do. Maybe you're trying to rock Whole 30. Maybe you're, you are training for a road race. There are all kinds of reasons, and we need to
Right.
respect the fact that we don't need to identify people as, are you a drinker or not? Put the options there and we might be surprised. But I wanted to mention again, back to Liars, I forgot to say this, but they've got this wonderful thing going on for now, and I think they'll continue it, where when you buy any purchase, they then send you a link where you can book a 15-minute Zoom call with one of their mixologists. And they'll come on with you and they've got their, Liars apron on and their bar set up, and they'll show you how to get off on a good start and, give you some tips and tricks for the product, which I think is a great touch and very smart on their part.
Oh, I think that's totally awesome. I haven't booked mine yet. I'm going to book mine and do it, but
It's
I did get
fun.
the email,
Oh,
and
that's so
I
fun.
think that is so awesome that they're offering that option too. And think
One other
about
thing I
that
want to
as like a
mention.
gift idea too.
Um, yeah, that would be isn't that a great gift where it's not just the bottle, but the experience where
Right.
someone,
Yeah.
I think that's so fun. So I wanted to mention this book called Good Drinks. And it is Good Drinks, alcohol-free recipes for when you're not drinking for whatever reason, by Julia Bainbridge. And it is really a kind of a game changer to me. It's a very sophisticated, kind of sexy looking book as you look through the photos. And the recipes are collected from top bartenders across the country. And so the idea of this book is these are just thoughtfully constructed, layered, complex drinks that just happen to not have alcohol. So, these are, and definitely it's trying to get away from the idea of mocktails. A lot of us use the word mocktail. There's nothing wrong with using it, but there are definitely a lot of people who
Yeah.
feel like that just makes the drink sound childish, or our association is that it's so sweet. Maybe if we've had some really bad ones. In this case, they're just, calling these, that's how she came up with the
Good
title,
drinks. Yeah.
yeah, they could be calling them non-alcoholic. I know a lot of people who prefer non-alcoholic cocktails, but yeah, she just wanted to say these are just good drinks. But I think that book would make a good gift, again, even for someone who does drink alcohol, because it's just about good mixology and flavors. So, I think some of those things are a great way to sort of get into this a little bit.
That's awesome. And I think we've given people, we've been on here longer than I expected, but we've given people a lot of insight and a lot of information. But I want because I know you have a resource, and some of these companies that you've talked about, you do have discount codes or something that people can get. So where can people find that resource so they can go there if this is what's interest to them? And because you do like a newsletter and stuff, right?
I do.
Okay.
Absolutely. Debbie, thank you. So I have these listed, my favorites, after tasting. Now I'm well over 100 different products that I've tasted. They're not all good. And I've listed the ones that really are excellent on my website. My website is clearpowercoaching.com. And from there, you just look for the resources page. And the resources page, I list my favorite non-alcoholic beverages up at the top. And I do have discount codes for a few of them where the producer has just, given me a code, and so that I can share that with other people, just to give people a way to try these things. And if you can find someone to go in on it with you, that's a great way, so that you can try some different things, and split that way the shipping costs and that sort of thing. And another thing that you might want to do is you make sure to put things in a pretty glass, and just
Yeah.
treat yourself well, because that's part of the experience, is the pretty glass, and put it on a nice tray, and have fun with a garnish, all the kinds of things that you would have done with an alcoholic beverage. We really deserve to treat ourselves and put ourselves fully in the ritual. But I do share from my website, and that resources page. I would definitely encourage anyone that's interested in this topic to sign up for my newsletter. I send out a monthly newsletter where I continue to review, explore new products or other resources and tips.
Right, that's awesome. And I really hope people take advantage of that. And I'll put a link also direct in the show notes so that people can have access to that resource too. And this has been so fantastic. I know people have a lot more information about this, and hopefully they'll be willing now to go out and look at some of the alcohol-free options that are out there. And they have an awesome resource place to start, right? Because you've tried over 100 of them. And yes, we all have different taste and whatever, but at least it's a start to where at least, all right, let me start with trying these because they've been tested out by someone other than me just going blanketly out myself, spending the money, because of the quality of these and the design in the bottles and stuff, they aren't any less expensive than the options that are with the alcohol in it. However, in order for you to have the experience and the taste and the connection and the whole event, I think that's part of it. It's
That's
that's
such a
how
good
you're
point.
getting the quality of what the difference in what is the alcohol-free item, I think.
That is such a good point. Some of these are it cost as much as the alcohol counterpart. And that is because of the ingredients. A lot of them do make use of botanicals, and the expense of very pristine ingredients that get distilled down to a tiny amount of liquid. But so they can be there is expense, and it's been interesting for me to think about that shift of, this is something I was willing to pay for alcohol that really wasn't doing me any favors. And it's been kind of a nice step in sort of self-care and self-compassion to realize I really should and can treat myself in this way to, these good ingredients that allow me to be part of the celebration.
Yes, I think it's awesome. And I'm glad we now have that option out there. And it sounds like based on the growth that you talked about, we are going to be having more and more. So we might have to come back in like 6 months and do a whole new show
I would
on
love
what
it.
else is out there.
I get so excited, as you can tell, and absolutely, I just say cheers to more options. This is great that we're in this place where the options are so plentiful. Thank you so much, Debi. This is so
thank
fun.
you for being here. This has been, and I will let you know what mine tastes like and what the family thought. Like I'm good, but you gave me an awesome idea of like putting it out and having all the supplies there and letting them like experience it for themselves.
That's
that,
great. Yeah,
and maybe
let's
putting it
compare
in
notes.
that way, right? It'll give them an option of at least a willingness to try it. And so that's how I'll come up with something, that's, it's going to take looking at a couple of books and getting some insight, because that's not really my creativity forte, but I can figure it out, right?
It'll be fun. Let me know how it goes, and have wonderful holidays to you.
All right, you too. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Anytime. Bye-bye.